was 17, he joined a crew, and he labored on the river like his dad and brothers too. They were river drivers, they did not grow, and seldom is their story ever told. They rode the logs down that old Penobscot, and in the end a cold and watery grave was all they got. They broke the jams on the river drives. They had to trust their feet to stay alive. At the age of 34, they called Joe wise. He'd outlived all his brothers. He was the man who never dies. His feet were nimble, his arms were strong. The young men called him father in their songs. He used his peavey and he used his head, and he rescued from that river many men should be dead. He moved from log to log just like a cat, and he could break apart a jam in seconds flat. But the river owns your soul if you're a river driving man. Try and cheat that river if you can. There was a log jam one snowy day. Joe was working with a rookie who was mostly in the way. The kid was eager, but the kid was green. He didn't look much older than 16. That old Penobscot, well, she was cold and cruel, and she'd not forgive a careless step, and she'd swallow up a fool. The logs were slippery, and the kid went down. Joe cursed him, but he couldn't let him drown. Joe saved the kid that day, but not himself. When they pulled him from that river, Joe was mangled all to hell. His leg was shattered, he'd lost an eye. His face looked bad, but he was still alive. That old Penobscot, she was a jealous wife. She took away Joe's good looks, but she didn't get his life. His river driving days were gone and done, but he gambled with the river and he'd won. Oh, but the river owns your soul if you're a river driving man. Try and cheat that river if you can. Joe never married, he lived alone. His face was so disfigured that he made the woods his home. He used a walking stick to get around, and he stayed alive by using what he found. One day while fishing, he saw her there, a young woman on the river bank with sunshine in her hair. She sat on a blanket underneath a tree. She had a little girl upon her knee. Joe stood and stared with his one good eye. He couldn't seem to look away, no matter how he tried. He'd seen her somewhere, a long lost dream. When she saw him standing there, she began to scream. Joe put his hands up and he backed away. As the woman grabbed her blanket, the little girl slipped on the clay. She tumbled down the bank and the river laughed. Joe saw her fall, and then he heard a splash. He didn't think, he just jumped in, and he threw himself upon the river's mercy once again. That freezing water, it was cruel and wild, but he wouldn't let that river have the child. His clothes were heavy and his leg was sore. He wrapped his arms around her waist and headed for the shore. With his final breath, he laid her on the stones, and he let that hungry river take him home. The river owns your soul if you're a river driving man. Try and cheat that river if you can. Try and cheat that river if